How on earth did Victorian authors manage to handwrite those huge novels? Should we find out? Come on then, let us proceed. Hello and welcome to the channel. I hope you're all doing very well indeed. Now, aside from this channel, I myself am writing 3 books simultaneously. 1 non-fiction and 2 fantasy fiction. And when we think of Victorian novels, we think of length. Huge thick blocks, page after page, volume after volume. Stories so vast they seem almost impossible. Bleak House, Middlemarch, Vanity Fair, The Woman in White, all written by hand. No keyboards, no word processors, and no delete key. So how exactly did Victorian writers manage to handwrite novels that stretch into the hundreds of thousands of words? The answer lies not in superhuman endurance, but in habit, necessity, and a very different relationship with time. To a Victorian writer, handwriting was not a chore. It was a trained bodily skill, much like sewing or piano practice. Children learned penmanship early, drilling letter forms daily. By adulthood, writing for hours was physically normal. Writers developed strong conditioned hands, a steady writing rhythm, muscle memory for entire phrases, and an almost automatic flow of words. Many could write for 5 or 6 hours a day, pausing only for meals or walks. Writing was not something done in bursts, it was done by routine. Victorian life allowed something modern life rarely does: long, uninterrupted stretches of time. There were no emails, no notifications, no social media, no constant interruptions. A writer could sit at a desk for an entire morning with nothing to distract them but the scratch of the pen and the passing of daylight. Silence was common, boredom existed, and from boredom, sustained focus grew. Writing a long novel wasn't extraordinary. It was simply what one did with the day. But one crucial detail is often forgotten. Many Victorian novels were not written all at once. They were published in monthly or weekly instalments, often in magazines. Charles Dickens, for example, wrote in episodes, each chapter produced on a strict deadline. The novel grew piece by piece, not as a single overwhelming task. So this meant writers focused on the next section and not the whole book. There was constant motivation. Publication depended on it. Income arrived regularly, and readers responded as the story unfolded. Writing became a form of structured labour, not a single monumental effort. Victorian writers rarely produced a single clean manuscript. They wrote in layers. First drafts were often messy, as they usually are, cramped and heavily revised. Some writers dictated passages aloud, especially when tired, to family members or paid assistants. Once the text was complete, a fair copy was prepared, either rewritten by the author or copied neatly by a professional copyist, or transcribed by a spouse or sibling. The fair copy was the version sent to the publishers or printers. In other words, many novels were written twice. Victorian writing tools also mattered. Steel nib pens replaced quills, making writing faster and less tiring. Ink flowed more smoothly, Paper quality improved throughout the century. Desks were designed for posture. Writers often stood at slanted writing desks to reduce strain. They also wrote in segments, a few pages, a short break, and another few pages. This rhythm prevented exhaustion and allowed sustained output. For many Victorian writers, writing was not just a hobby, it was their livelihood. Payment depended on word count, instalments, and page numbers. Longer novels paid better. This economic reality encouraged length, but it also enforced discipline. A Victorian writer could not wait for inspiration. They wrote because the rent depended on it. And because writing was physically normalised, this was possible. Perhaps the biggest difference between Victorian writers and modern ones lies here. They did not expect writing to feel easy. They expected it to be work. They expected fatigue. They expected resistance. They expected long hours. Writing was approached the way one approached farming, tailoring, or teaching, with consistency rather than emotional momentum. Modern writers often ask, "Am I inspired today?" Victorian writers asked, "Is it morning?" To us, the idea of handwriting a 900-page novel feels impossible. But that's because we no longer train handwriting endurance. Our attention is constantly fragmented. We expect speed, efficiency, and ease, and we work in short, interrupted bursts. Victorian writers lived inside a slower world, one that allowed long, sustained effort. Their novels were not miracles. They were products of environment, discipline, and time. Victorian writers did not possess superhuman powers. They possessed something rarer: time, focus, routine, and a deep familiarity with physical labour of the mind. They wrote slowly. They wrote steadily. They wrote because it was what the day required. And with nothing more than pen, ink, and persistence, they created works that still shape our literature today. And I say thank you to them for the wonders that they created. Thank you for watching, and until next time, bye for now.